Week 3 of the NFL season is upon us. We have just finished the Thursday night game between the New England Patriots and the New York Jets. Welcome to the PTW podcast, where you play to win the game. My name is Amir Kosvan, and with me, as always, is Anastasios Tassi, the football Greek. I finally pointed the right way today.
You got it right.
I got it right. That way. It's the complete opposite of what I'm used to.
Took about 6 times, but we got it. All right.
But yeah, man. Yes. Back at it again with week 3. A lot happened in week 2 that kind of threw the NFL into shambles as far as people's predictions, as far as how good teams are going to be. What are the good teams? What are the great teams? What are the bad teams? Everything is kind of jumbled up right now, as it should be in week 2. Yeah. But let's get started and let's talk about week 3. Last night, the New England Patriots moseyed on over to the New York Jets and MetLife and lost pretty easily to the New England Patriots 24-3. What are your thoughts, man?
It's like what we talked about, man. Like Thursday night, another division game, another stinker. Like literally, it was unwatchable, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was unwatchable. It was like, what was the final score? 24-3 or something like that.
24-3 was the final score.
It was like basically unwatchable. We talked about the guys that were going to be good. Breece Hall had a touchdown. Garrett Wilson had a touchdown. Rodgers showed some mobility, so he looked like he was back to his old form a little bit more. Sure. So I know that kind of doesn't bode well for your prediction, right? Like the Jets were going to be really bad. It looks like they're going to start off probably 3-1 because I can see them winning next week as well. I think they got another cake matchup. They play the Broncos next week, so looks like they're going to be 3-1 to start the season. So
that's okay. Hey, there's a lot of season left to be played, and listen, their first 3 games were against the San Francisco 49ers, which they lost.
Yeah.
Understandably.
Yeah.
The second week they
got destroyed.
The Titans. They played the Titans in week 2.
Yeah.
Not a great team. And the Patriots in week 3.
Yeah.
Not a great team. So the NFL scheduling gods have been very nice to the New York Jets. They've handed them some great, easy win games in the beginning of the season. Let's see how it progresses when they get to the Buffalo Bills, when they get to the harder teams in the NFL, like the Niners. Let's see how they play against the Rams. Let's see how they play against the Seahawks. Let's see how they play against the Cardinals, who are surging all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So
they got to see
let's wait. Yeah. Let's slow our rolls a little bit, Jets fans. I'm very happy that Rodgers looks
crazy.
Yeah.
They love Aaron Rodgers.
Rodgers looks good. But let's just hold our horses a little bit, all right?
Yeah.
We beat the Patriots team. Good job.
Okay. Pretty bad one. But that Jets defense, again, like we talked about, like on I think in the podcast, like that was a good fantasy play this week. They got you 16 points, so that was another. If you listen, you get rewarded. Pretty obvious play though.
That's a good plug.
Yeah.
That's a good plug. Well, not much to say about that game. Jets looked good against a pretty dismal Patriots team. Granted, this Patriots team did beat the Bengals in week 1, but as we've established, the Bengals take some time to get up to speed with the season. Bengals looked very good against the Kansas City team, and if not for a pretty horrendous pass interference call on 4th down, Bengals most likely win the game against the Kansas City Chiefs. So hey, Patriots fans, I think you can hold your head up high. This was a bad game Thursday night. Let's see how you do in week 4. But let's talk about the rest of the NFL season, or the rest of the NFL season, the rest of the week, I should say.
Yeah,
and we've got some pretty interesting. We've got some pretty interesting games on the docket this week. So first and foremost, what's the one game that sticks out to you that you want to talk about the most, that you're like really itching to talk about?
Yeah, I think the game that I like that's going to be interesting is going to be the Eagles coming off that horrendous loss to Atlanta, where they had the game won. It was like they were looking at the odds. They had like a 99% chance of winning until Saquon dropped that pass, and then it went where are we at here? Like up and down. So, seeing how they come off it, and then, we've got they're playing
the Saints.
The Saints. this week. So the surprising juggernaut that is the Saints, they brought, like we talked about in the preseason. We talked about Clint Kubiak bringing the Niners that offense over, that Kyle Shanahan tree. They're doing a lot in the run game. They got Alvin Kamara, another guy we talked about, on our draft show. Like, look, he had 4 TDs last week. So it's just like, their offense, Derek Carr's throwing it deep. We talked about that. Cowboys are susceptible deep. Got Shaheed another long touchdown. Like all these things that we kind of saw, like kind of like have the premonition about, they've kind of come to pass here with the Saints. And they look tough. They look like a good team. So it's going to be, I think that's the game I'm looking forward to see how the Eagles respond to that tough loss. And then also, the Saints they keep it rolling, with try to go to 3-0.
The Saints so far in the NFL season have scored the most touchdowns out of any team in the NFL. Yeah. They have scored a total of 11 touchdowns so far, 6 passing, 5 rushing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 6 rushing, 5 passing for 11 total touchdowns so far in the season. No other team is remotely close. The Bills have 8, and the Vikings have 6. That's about it. Everyone else is in the 5 range. The Chiefs have 6 as well. Everyone else is in the 5, the 4s, and the 3s. But the Saints have a whopping 11 touchdowns. Now, granted, week 1 was against a terrible Carolina Panthers team that is already looking forward to 2025. And week 2 was against the Dallas Cowboys team that, hey, man, look, I have to give it to the Saints. That was an impressive win.
Yeah.
That was an impressive win.
That was impressive.
And I want to point one thing out about the Eagles game, because we didn't talk about this on our post show last week or on Monday, because I didn't realize it until Tuesday. But last year, I'm going to talk about some Dolphins trivia in a second. Last year, the Miami Dolphins played the Tennessee Titans on Monday Night Football. They had a 2-touchdown lead. And with less than 2 minutes left in the game, a little bit more than 2 minutes left in the game, Miami's defense played soft. They played terrible. And Will Levis went crazy. And the Dolphins lost that game, essentially giving up their first round bye.
That was the beginning of the end for them.
That was the beginning of the end. That was Monday Night Football, 2-minute defensive collapse. This past Monday, Philadelphia has a 6-point lead, a little bit more than a minute left. They play super soft defense. And they give up the 6-point lead, and they give up the win to a very surprising Atlanta Falcons. What's the one thing that those two teams have in common? Vic Fangio was the defensive coordinator for both teams. Vic Fangio dialed up that soft defense against the Tennessee Titans for the Dolphins, and that failed them. And he did the exact same thing for the Philadelphia Eagles against the Atlanta Falcons. Why are you playing soft when the game is on the line? So Philly has to bounce back at this game.
Frustrating.
But the last time these two teams played each other was last year in January. Saints went to the Eagles and they beat them 20-10. This time, Eagles are going to the Saints. And I don't know. I think this is the game that if the Saints are the real deal, I think this is the game that proves that they're the real deal.
And you know what? I think they're going to win the game. So
I think so too.
I think they're real. I think Derek Carr is kind of having a little renaissance. They got Kamara, showing he wasn't done. Everybody thought he was done, and their defense is legit. They have a good defense in Dennis Allen there. The Saints defense is legit. So I know they got the Honey Badger on their team, right? Like and then they got some good corners in Lattimore. So they're a legit team, and I think they're going to beat the Eagles. So I would say Eagles going to drop to 1-2, and
1-2.
Saints going to be 3-0 after this weekend.
Yeah, I would not be surprised in the slightest. Another game that I'm looking really forward to, if I can get my screen ready here, is Texans versus Vikings. We've got the battle of 2-0 teams, an AFC juggernaut right now, and surprisingly an NFC juggernaut right now. And I don't really, I guess it is surprising because we all thought that JJ McCarthy was going to start, but who knows what this team would be with JJ McCarthy. Maybe they're not 2-0. Who knows? I don't know how much of the Vikings winning is on the back of Sam Darnold. But it's one of those things where, like, it just kind of, it worked out the way it worked out. Texans are traveling to the Vikings, and I must say that even though the Texans won against Chicago on Monday night, it wasn't as impressive of a win as I thought it was going to be.
No, it wasn't. We thought they were going to blow them out. We even bet on them, and we pushed our bet because we got them at plus 6 or minus 6, excuse me.
Minus 6,
and we didn't even win that bet because they couldn't even cover the 6 points against a Bears team. You know, it's like we talked about. They don't seem like they're you know, kind of like they're really good week 1, but it was really like the Colts. I don't know how good they are, and they kind of let the Colts stick around. And then they did the same thing with Chicago. So it's like, are they really that good? You know, I know that I picked them, and I thought that they were going to be like the best team in the AFC. But so maybe it's just kind of like some growing pains here to begin the season. But you know, so far they haven't been that impressive. And CJ Stroud really hasn't been as impressive either. He hasn't really had like that like really great game. So we'll kind of see what happens here against Minnesota, against that Brian Flores defense, right? That kind of gave Brock Purdy fits. And he's going to be blitzing a lot. He's going to be super aggressive, and you know, we'll see how CJ Stroud does. And then he's also going to be without his running back Joe Mixon. It looks like he's been listed as doubtful this week. So look for Cam Akers, who had a really costly fumble at the goal line last week when he was filling in after Mixon got hurt. I think he rolled up on his ankle on that. You know, that like, you know, the hip drop tackle basically that wasn't called, you know, where the guy kind of just like, you know, lands on his ankle, you know, typical why they banned it this year, but for some reason it wasn't called. So now Joe Mixon's out, and they got Cam Akers in, and I think Dameon Pierce is the backup, but he's also hurt with the hamstring. So it's going to be Cam Akers going, you know, I don't know how good he is, you know, at this point.
Yeah.
So, yeah. You know, that's kind of going to be a blow for them. So we'll see how they respond. But you know, they still got their receivers. They still got you know, they've got Nico Collins, who, you know, like I got to remember his name because the guy
your favorite guy
should be remembered because he's been awesome, and he was awesome last Sunday night. He had a huge game. And they got Stephon Diggs, and then Tank Dell really hasn't done that much in the beginning of the season. And you know, when you got a guy like that as your third receiver, it's like you got some weapons on offense, and especially in the receiving core. So, you know, I still think that the Texans are going to win this game, but it's going to be a close game. It's going to be tough. On the other side of the ball, you got Justin Jefferson, who got hurt during the Niners game, but he says that he's going to play. He's vowed to, you know, he's going to play. And so the Vikings should be at full strength against the Texans. Yeah,
it's interesting. If you compare stats between CJ Stroud and Sam Darnold, they are nearly identical right now. Wow. Sam Darnold, CJ Stroud has a 16, almost 70% completion percentage rating, 494 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Sam Darnold, 72%. Completion average, 476 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. So he's got those 2 interceptions. But statistic wise, as far as yardage and touchdowns and completion percentage goes, very identical. So who knew at the beginning of the season that this week 3 matchup between the Texans and Vikings was going to be like as enticing as I think it's going to be? I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to
win.
I think the Vikings win this one. I will say, look, I know, granted, like, the Niners haven't won in Minnesota in 30 years.
Yeah.
That I don't care about those kinds of stats because every team is different every single year. The fact that Minnesota did beat the Niners, granted, it was in Minnesota, it was at home. This game is at home for Minnesota as well. That gives me more confidence in that team, and I think they're riding really high on confidence right now. I see them. I don't see it a blowout. I see this being a very close game. Yeah, but I think Minnesota.
Right now, Minnesota's getting 2 points at home, so they're a home underdog. So, you know, which I would expect. So I do. I'm on the other side. I do think that Houston is going to pull out this game. It's going to be a field goal game in the end. So I think they're right on the money with the line there, and I think that Houston will cover the 2 points. So
for me, Tossi's picking the Texans. I'm picking the Vikings. We are moving forward to another interesting matchup here, the battle of another 2-0 teams. I don't think anyone predicted at the beginning of the season. The LA Chargers are going to Pittsburgh to
Yeah.
play Justin Fields and the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
Both teams 2-0. And my question to you, Tossie, is which one is actually the contender and which one is the pretender?
So, the thing about the Steelers is they're always contenders, but they're not like contenders for a Super Bowl. They're a contender to be like 500 or just above and go to the playoffs, right?
Correct.
But they're not going to make much noise. And, that's kind of what they are under Tomlin. He's such a great coach. Like, he's never missed the playoffs, essentially. So, they're going to be there at the end. But are they a contender like for Super Bowl? No. Chargers, on the other hand, I think with Harbaugh just he does his thing, man. He comes in, they're already 2-0. They're riding high. But the one issue that this week that they do have is Herbert, their quarterback, is doubtful with the high ankle sprain, and it doesn't look like he's going to play. So that's a big loss for them. They have the backup Jacob Eason, who's going to be starting for them, and with Pittsburgh's defense, the way they play, man, and TJ Watt, man, he's going to be tearing it up, So I do not see Chargers going 3-0. So I think that this week it's going to be Pittsburgh. They're going to be 3-0, and I think that Justin Fields is going to remain the starter even after this week. I think that he's going to do enough being 3-0 that they're going to keep him in there, and Russell Wilson's never going to get his shot, buddy. So I know that you are interested to see it, but that's my take. That's my take. No Russell Wilson unless Fields gets hurt. Right. Justin Fields is going to win the job. They're going to start 3-0, and they're going to win this week. They're in Pittsburgh. They're favored by 2.5. I think they cover that line, and especially without Herbert, their quarterback, I don't think Chargers stand a chance to win. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a close game, but defensively, Pittsburgh just has the edge. So
yeah. Russell Wilson, excuse me. Yeah, wrong sport. Russell Wilson is questionable for Sunday. I think you're right. I think Justin Fields continues to start, and I don't think I think if all goes well, it might be another Alex Smith Kaepernick situation where I don't think Wilson ever really does get his shot. I think he just sits back and collects his fat paycheck from the Denver Broncos and just kind of sits there and does his thing. And you know what?
Yeah.
There's worse jobs in the world.
No,
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree with you. I think the Steelers win this. I've gone on record saying I love Jim Harbaugh and I love what he does to teams, and you already are seeing it with the Chargers.
Yeah.
Granted, again, they haven't played anyone. I mean, outside of the Raiders, you could argue that, but especially what the Raiders did to the Ravens last week. But still, week 3. We're learning about these teams. I think the Steelers. I'm with you. I think the Steelers go to 3-0. Yeah. Okay, let's talk 3 more games. I'm gonna brush by the Dolphins game real quick because I'm the Dolphins fan. So
you gotta talk about the Dolphins.
If anyone cares about my opinion on this game, I'm going to give you my opinion on this game. Dolphins travel to Seattle. It is actually the longest flight in the NFL that you can take.
It is.
From Miami, Florida to Seattle, Washington. From a mileage perspective and from a time perspective, it is the longest flight you can take. I'm happy it's in week 3. I'm a little upset it's not before a bye week or anything like that because they got to go right back and play a week 4 game. This is obviously without Tua, who went on IR and is out for at least 4 weeks and won't come back at earliest until week 8 against the Arizona Cardinals because Miami has a bye somewhere in there, and that bye does not count towards the 4 games. Yeah. And so in essence, he's out for 5 weeks, not 4 weeks. I listen, this is not me being a Debbie Downer. I don't have faith in Skylar Thompson, and I don't think that Miami wins this game. I think Seattle being 2-0 is a great start for the team. I think Geno Smith is doing really well. They powered through that win against the New England Patriots. I can't remember who they beat last week. Who did the Seahawks beat?
The Seahawks, I think they played the Patriots, didn't they?
They played the Patriots, and was that last week? Then
no, yeah, that was last week.
I can't remember who they beat in week 1. Then doesn't matter.
I can look it up.
As we're doing that. I think the Patriots. Oh, they played the Broncos in week 1. So I think the Patriots. I'm sorry, the Patriots. the Seahawks are just, I think they're the more physical team. And I think, home field advantage is a real thing, especially in Seattle. I think that flight is going to get to the Dolphins. I think morale wise, I think the team is shot right now. You see interviews with Mike McDaniel, and he's just somber the entire time. You could tell that this was a blow which is very surprising. They weren't expecting, the fact that it was a self-inflicted concussion, I think makes it that much worse. If he had been grabbed and hip drop tackled, if he had like hip drop tackled and his head slammed to the floor, that's one thing. But for him to go head first into someone and cause this injury on his own, I think has really, really disappointed a lot of the fan base. But yeah, they don't win. I think Miami goes to 1-2. I would be pleasantly surprised if they do win, although I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I think Seattle's going to win this game. They're giving 4.5 points to Miami, so I do see them winning and covering the spread. They'll probably win by at least a touchdown here, and it's going to be hard to see Miami's offense go. I mean, Mike McDaniel, granted, he does a really good job with the offense and like his run schemes, but it's very similar to what the Niners run, right? So Seattle's very familiar with that offense, and they know how to kind of like keep them in check. And I do think it looks like Mostert's going to be out, so it's going to be more A-Chain. He's going to have another good game, and then Jalen Wright filling in too behind him. And then I think Tyreek Hill, you got to start him in fantasy. It's like he's so awesome. Maybe he gets a deep pass, or he breaks one and he gets a long touchdown for you. But I'd be hesitant about starting any other Miami pass catcher like Jalen Waddle or anything like that. So
I would agree with that. From the battle of one AFC team versus an NFC team to another AFC team to the NFC team, the magic question is, who needs to win more? The Baltimore Ravens or the Dallas Cowboys? This is a very intriguing match going into week 3. Baltimore visiting the Ravens, visiting the Cowboys, after starting out 0-2, barely losing in week 1 to the Chiefs, and then very surprising loss to the Raiders in week 2 at home.
Baltimore, a blown fourth quarter lead.
Very interesting. Starts the season off against 2 AFC West teams, and now moves to an NFC East team. Baltimore has yet to play any team in their division going into week 3. 0-2 versus 1-1. Ravens versus Cowboys. What do you think, man?
I think the Ravens get on the board here. I think after the last two weeks, they've should have won both games essentially, and they ended up losing both. They were a toe away in the first game against Kansas City from tying it up, and I think they were going to go for 2 to go for the win in that game. I think that's what they were planning to do. And then last week, they had a fourth quarter lead, and they let Gardner Minshew and Devontae Adams just go off and win the game. So I think they're going to be focused. They've got a really good team, and they got Lamar and Derrick Henry, and they still have a good defense. So I don't know where they were last week against the Raiders in the fourth quarter, but I think they're going to come out strong against the Cowboys, and it's going to be a close game. But I don't. After what the Saints did to the Cowboys last week, I think the Cowboys are pretenders, man. Like I don't like their defense didn't play well against the Saints. They're obviously not good play the run that well, and they can get blown off the ball. And so they kind of got exposed last week. And, the Ravens are going to want to run the ball. They're going to want to run with Lamar. They're going to want to run with Derrick Henry. Yeah. So I see that the Ravens are going to win this game. I think right now the line's like 1. Baltimore's favored by 1. So it's pretty much a pick. It's a pick 'em. So I'll take Baltimore giving a point. And I think they win by 3 points. So
I think the interesting stat here is you alluded to it a little bit with the rushing. If the Ravens have 2 players that have over 100 yards rushing on the season so far, with both, funny enough, Lamar Jackson has 167 yards rushing on 21 attempts. Derrick Henry has 130 yards. So Lamar Jackson is the leading rusher of the Baltimore Ravens. Nonetheless, Derrick Henry has 130 yards with 2 touchdowns. Meanwhile, the 2 rushing leaders for The Cowboys
So
each have 56 yards combined.
Yeah.
That total.
Elliott
So
and Dowdle, right?
Elliott and Dowdle both have
Yeah.
56 yards each, right? So, do quick math, 112 yards total for both of them. That's less than either Derrick Henry or Lamar Jackson, right? Elliott only has the one touchdown. So I think really what this game is going to come down to is the rushing attack. I
Yeah.
think if the Cowboys, if they're able to stop the run with the Ravens, then Dak can do his thing and throw the ball to CD and
Yeah.
all that stuff, and maybe let the defense kind of hop back on this game and get some of that credibility back. But if they can't stop the run,
Yeah, it's gonna be a long day.
I think it'll be a long day. I think
the
it'll
Ravens
go
will
the
roll
Ravens'
them,
way.
and then what the Cowboys are susceptible to is that they can't stop the run, and then they do the play action and they go deep on them, and they'll hit those quick to deep to intermediate passes. Same thing the Saints did to them last week, and Niners did to them last year when they played them, and they just blew them out. Same game plan basically. So I see the Ravens trying to emulate that, and I think they'll be successful doing that. And with the Cowboys, they've got the two guys rushing, but if you're going to start a Cowboys running back, if you have to pick between Zeke Elliott and Rico Dowdle, I would take Dowdle because I just think he's the better player, and he looks like he's getting more of the reps. And I think that's going to continue to kind of trend that way moving forward. So if you have questions about that, that's what I would go with. I know that.
Right now it's neck and neck, but I would agree with you. I think that's a trajectory that it's going on.
Yeah.
I think that's where it'll go. All right. One game left that we want to talk about.
Yeah.
That is about the team that you were wearing the hat of and representing. The San Francisco 49ers, coming off that disappointing loss to the Minnesota Vikings, go on the road again to SoFi Stadium, also known as Levi Stadium South.
Levi South,
right?
Mm-hmm.
Levi South, right?
Niners fans going to take it over. I think it's going to be 90% Niners fans. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's all good. 1-1 versus 0-2.
Yeah.
Rams have looked decent, but they're banged up already going into week 3.
Yeah.
Niners, though, also banged up. Talk to me a little bit about the injuries and what your expectations are for the game.
Yeah. So Niners are pretty banged up. They got a lot of injuries, on both sides of the ball. Bosa didn't practice yesterday. Jabari Ford didn't practice yesterday. George Kittle left practice with hamstring tightness. Deebo Samuel's already been ruled out with the calf injury. McCaffrey, we already know he's out, for a couple weeks. He's on IR with the tendonitis in his Achilles. So, we're looking at a depleted Niners squad. And then on the other side, the Rams, same thing. Cooper Kupp's out. Puka Nakua's out. They're missing 4 offensive linemen. They lost their middle linebacker. They traded him away for basically nothing. So they're struggling. Both teams are kind of depleted, but the Niners have owned the Rams in the regular season. The only game they lost is really the NFC Championship game a few years ago, and they should have won that game. They were up 10 late, and they didn't intercept the ball. Obviously, so I don't want to get started on that. Focus here.
Focus on week 3 of 2024. Week 3 of 2024, Tassi.
So I do think the Niners are going to be okay. I think Jordan Mason is going to have a huge game. It's going to be a big Jordan Mason game. I think that Kittle is going to gut it out and try to play. If he doesn't, then Salbert's going to be the guy to kind of fill in for him. And then Brandon Ayuk and Juwan Jennings will be the main pass catchers that I expect. I think Ayuk's finally going to break out in this game, and he's going to have a good game. And then Juwan's solid. He'll be there. He'll be there on third down for Niners like he always is. And I think he'll have a good game as well. So I do think the Niners are going to score some points against the Rams because they have, like the Cardinals did last week. They just thrashed them, right? And the Rams just are not. They don't have a good defensive team. And I don't think they're going to be that great on offense either. It's just going to be a blowout game, in my opinion. I think the Niners are going to win by at least 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I don't have a hard opinion on this game. I think it can go. It's probably going to go the Niners' way.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams do put up a fight. I don't see them winning the game. But there have been surprises so far in these 2 weeks of the NFL.
Yeah.
Let's see if there's any more.
If the Rams lose this game, they're going to go to 0-3. And I think their season's kind of at risk to kind of just falling off, like the rails, essentially. I know last year they started off 3-6, and they ended up making the playoffs because they, went 7-1 down the stretch. But, this year's different. They got all the injuries, and who knows how long Cup's going to be out. They didn't put him on IR, but he's probably going to miss 3 weeks, probably 4. If this goes how it usually does. And then, Puka, who knows how long he's going to be out. He's going to be out 5-6 weeks. So, I don't see them doing much this year. I think it's going to be a lost season for the Rams.
Yeah. We before we started, we said that we were going to talk about these games, but there is one more game that I'm very intrigued about. I'd love to hear your thoughts on.
Yeah.
This is the surprising Monday Night Miracle winners, the Atlanta Falcons, hosting the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
In Atlanta, 2-0 versus 1-1. I mean, my gut tells me this isn't even a contest. My gut tells me this is not even going to get close. But I mean, look, I didn't think the Eagles Falcons was going to be a contest.
Yeah.
And that had the result that it did. Do you think Atlanta rides high on the momentum and Kirk Cousins rides high on the newfound confidence he got from ushering that drive to what would be a shocking upset in Atlanta? I don't even know what the line is right now, but a shocking upset in Atlanta. Oh, so not even that of a shocking upset, but in my opinion would be a shocking upset. But what do you think?
Yeah, so Atlanta's giving 3 points at home. Coming off that win, that's a lot of momentum for them, man.
Mm-hmm.
And they're back on Sunday night. They've got, like we talked about, Atlanta's got this sneaky good offense. So if Kirk Cousins can kind of play like he did at the end of that game, where he just was surgical, just the bam, bam, bam. I know that the defense was, they were playing
very soft.
Playing way too soft in a 6-point game where a touchdown, loses you the game. Exactly. But they've got their weapons. They got Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and then on defense they actually have some players on defense. They actually have a pretty decent defense, and it started last year. They started playing better on defense, and then it's kind of translated to this year. So, they did pretty well against the Eagles squad that has a lot of weapons, right? And even though they were missing A.J. Brown last week, they still kept the game close, and they were able to, to end up winning the game in the end with that drive. But, I think Atlanta still has an opportunity at home to win this game. I don't think it's as cut and dry as, we may think. Because like I've said, I don't think Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs are that good. I don't. They get lucky. Maybe they'll get another call this week. They'll get another, aided pass interference call or some other junk that usually happens with Mahomes and Kelsey and those guys. And they're like, oh yeah, we're so good. I mean, I've never seen any but beyond remember when Mahomes first started? It was awesome to see him play, right? He was awesome. Yep. He made plays. He did stuff to win the games. Now I watch the games. I'm like, when is he going to get bailed out again this time? It's not like he's doing the spectacular stuff anymore, having these great games. He's they're barely winning these games. And then on top of it, they're getting these calls and they're getting all these penalties and extending drives, doing these things to kind of help them. I don't know. To me, it seems orchestrated. I don't like it. I don't like it. I'll tell you. You can tell I'm bitter, man. So anyway, I do not think Kansas City is that good. I think Atlanta keeps it close. They even might win this game. So, but -3 is tough. It's tough to call. You know what? I'm going to go on a limb there. I'm going to say that Kansas City wins the game, but doesn't cover this week.
You think it'll be close? You'll be another one point
I think it's
game
it's a 1 or 2 point. Yeah, it's a last.
I guess the Bengals. Excuse me.
Same type of thing. Yeah, last minute field goal. Mahomes gets bailed out some junk. He collapses because someone blew on him. And they call a 15-yard roughing the passer. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's coming. Watch, it's coming. And we're like, what the hell?
It's very possible.
That's my take on it. Yeah.
It's very possible. Okay. Yeah.
What's your take on it?
To me, it would be a shocker. Well, I think the Chiefs win, but I think it would be a shocker if the Falcons win. I know you're arguing that it necessarily wouldn't be, but I think, I haven't seen. Granted, yeah, some calls have gone their way, and they've come in like opportune times.
Yeah.
But I don't have the bias that you do. I think that I think Mahomes is the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think the NFL is treating him with kid gloves because he is the star of the league.
Yeah.
But that doesn't take away from the fact that I think the dude is super talented, and I think he's, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the NFL right now. And so we'll see. I think it would be a huge upset if Atlanta wins, but I find it surprising that Atlanta gets 2 primetime games back-to-back, a Monday night game and then a Sunday night game. Granted,
right?
They were on the road for Monday night, and then now
you like that?
For Sunday night. Yeah, that's really interesting how that worked out. But okay, so those are our takes on week 3 of the NFL. What are your takes? Let us know in the comment section down below. And as always, if you're new to the PTW podcast and you're joining us here on YouTube, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our podcast, and follow us on all our social media channels, on X, on Facebook, or on Instagram as well. And if you're listening to this on the audio platform, on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure to follow us as we drop 2 podcasts per week throughout the NFL season. As always, my name is Amir. This is Anastasios Tassi, the Football Greek. Enjoy week 3, and we will see you Sunday night after the Sunday night game.
Let's go. Week 3. Let's get it.